Hi Algebra 1, please update your table of contents. So today's date, learning target B, the distributive property, and your page number. So learning target B, we've been focusing on solving equations, and today we're going to focus on solving equations using the distributive property. So our essential question is, how can I use the distributive property to solve an equation? Make sure you have your page number, your date, make a horizontal line, and then you'll have your two columns, your questions on the left, your notes on the right. So before we begin, let's go ahead and talk about what is the distributive property. And today I'll be taking notes in a notebook so you can see how it might look when you are taking notes. So I have my essential question at the top, and then I want to start with a definition. The distributive property is to multiply a quantity to each term. So here's an example of the distributive property. Maybe I have -2 times 3x minus 4. So when I'm using the distributive property, I'm distributing a quantity to each term. So here I have a -2. This -2 is being distributed. It's going to multiply to the 3x and multiply to the -4. So the first step is -2 times 3x. And the second step is -2 times -4. So this distribution, if I multiply those two terms, I get a -6 times x, and then a -2 times -4 is a +8. So here's our first example. -8x plus 3 equals 6x plus 11. This does not have the distributive property, but I wanted to make sure that we can solve an equation by combining like terms. That's our learning target B. If you can master this, you can master solving with the distributive property. So looking at our first example, remember when we're combining like terms, we want to choose one side to combine all of our variables, and a variable is a letter. So I'm noticing I have a -8x and a 6x. And then on the other side of the equation, we want our constant numbers. So I'm seeing that I have a +3 and a +11. When I solve an equation, I really like to put a vertical line to help me keep track of the left and right side of the equal sign so that I know I have to take away things to both sides to keep the equation balanced. So first, let's focus on our variable side. I noticed the -8x is in the correct spot, but the 6x is in the wrong spot. So to combine all my like variables, I need to subtract 6x because I need to do the opposite of a +6x to both sides. So when I do that, on the left side, I have -8x and -6x, which equals -14x. I haven't done anything to the constants yet, so I'm going to leave that a +3. And then here, I have a zero pair. +6x and -6x is 0, so those go away. And I only have left a +11. Now it looks like I have all the variables on the variable side, so I've correctly combined like terms. I'm done with my variables. But I do have constants in the wrong spot. Which constant is on the wrong side of the equation? Is it the 3 or the 11? The 3 is on the wrong side of the equation. So how do I undo adding 3? I need to subtract 3 from both sides. So when I subtract 3 from both sides, I'm noticing I have a zero pair because I want to get rid of it on the variable side. So that's going to go away. All that I have left is -14x. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. And on the right side, I have 11 and a -3. Together, those come to +8. So once you get all your terms combined, so you have all your variables on one side, your constants on the other, then your goal is always to get what x equals, 1x. So now we need to undo this multiplication. This is -14 times x. To undo multiplication, I need to divide. Now remember, a fraction means divide. And a lot of people We'll say to divide by 14 because 14 divided by 14 is 1. But I need a positive 1x. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive 1x. So I need to divide both sides by negative 14. So x equals, what's a positive divided by a negative? A negative. 8 divided by 14. I can't simplify that. So you want to leave it as a fraction if it doesn't go in evenly. But if you have a fraction, you need to make sure it is simplified. Is there a number that goes both into 8 and 14 that I can simplify this fraction with? Yes, 2 goes into both of these. So I'm going to have a negative. 8 can be written as 2 times 4. 14 can be 2 times 7. I'm noticing 2 divided by 2 is 1, so they cancel out. Some people think of it as dividing both the top and the bottom of the fraction by 2. So my final answer is x equals negative 4/7. So remember, answers can be fractional. That means that it does not divide evenly. Don't put a decimal, leave it as a fraction. So here's example 2. Negative 3 quantity 4x minus 4 plus x plus 4 equals 38. Now if I notice there's distributive property that needs to be used in this equation, can you see where it is? It's where we have parentheses because we need to distribute the negative 3 to the 4x minus 4. So let me show you how to do that. So before we can combine like terms, I always want you to distribute. So I'm noticing I have a negative 3, and it needs to be multiplied by the 4x and the negative 4. So I get negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, and it always will keep the x. Negative 3 times a negative 4 is a positive 12. And everything else can stay the same because the negative 3 only distributes to the parentheses. So this negative 3 only distributes to the numbers inside the parentheses. Now, this turns into combining like terms. What side do we want our variables on? Which side do we want our constants? I'm noticing there's only constants on this side, so I'm going to decide that 38 is going to be our constant side. And then we can make the left side our variable side. So let's go ahead and combine like terms. I'm noticing I have a negative 12x and an x on the same side, so those have to go together. So when I do that, I get negative 11x when I add the negative 12 plus the x. I'm noticing I have a 12 and a 4 on this side, which adds up to 16. And then I have 38. So after I've combined like terms on the left side, now I need to see how I can combine all the constants together. It looks like the 16's on the wrong side. How do I undo adding 16? I need to subtract 16 from both sides. So I'm left over with negative 11x. The 16's create a zero pair and go away. Equals 38 minus 16 is 22. Now that I've combined all the like terms and gotten all the variables on the variable side, the constants on the constant side, now I need to solve for 1x. 1x, let me put it over here. 1x equals something. You might be able to solve this in your head. Negative 11 times something equals 22. Automatically, I should know it's a negative because a negative times a negative number is a positive number. If you don't know what the multiplication is, you can go ahead and undo the multiplication by dividing. And remember, a fraction means divide. Now, why did I divide by a negative? Why did I not do opposites like I was adding and subtracting? Because remember, we need to get a positive 1. A negative divided by negative is a positive 1x. Up above, we were trying to get a zero pair. That's why the signs are different. So now, let's go back to our final answer. We have 22 divided by negative 11. A positive divided by a negative is a negative answer. And this time, I can actually do that division. 22 divided by 11 is negative 2. So don't leave it as a fraction if it divides evenly. And some people were wondering about fractions, so I did want to do one more example with a distributive property and fractions to help you make it into a simpler version of the equation. So our last example is 4 equals 4/3 times 8x minus 5. Now we could distribute, but some people struggle with multiplying by fractions. So let me show you guys a strategy to undo the fraction first. Remember what operation fractions are? Fractions are the same as division. This means 4 divided by 3. So what I would recommend, the first step that you should do is to actually multiply each side by the denominator to undo the division. Remember, we're trying to undo this divide by 3. That's why I multiplied by 3. And let's see what happens when I make my equation line. On the left, we have 3 times 4 is 12. Now on the right side of the equation, we have 3 times 4 divided by 3. And remember commutative property, you can multiply and divide in any order. So I like to do 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 1 times 4 equals 4. It looks like they cancel out, but it's because they turned into a 1. Some people might do 3 times 4 is 12. Divide by 3, you still get 4. And then I can bring down my parentheses. So to recap, to undo a fraction, I would multiply by the denominator to undo that division of the fraction. Leave the top the same though. So now this turns into a distributive property problem. What number am I distributing? The 4 is in front of the parentheses, so the 4 needs to be distributed. So on the left side, it stays the same because there was no distribution. On the right side, 4 times 8 is 32, and it's 8x, so it's 32x. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. Now I'm looking at this, I want to combine my like terms. I'm noticing the x is on the right side, so I'm going to make the right side my variable. You can choose whichever side you want to be your variable side, and the other side will be your constant number side. So my variables are already combined on the right side. We're good to go there. Now I need to get all my constant numbers on the left. Which number do I need to make a zero pair with? The 12 or the negative 20? The negative 20 is on the wrong side of the equation, so I'm going to make a zero pair by adding 20 to both sides. So when I do that, I get 12 plus 20 is 32. Bring down my equal sign. I still have 32x because I didn't add or subtract any x's. And look, our constants became a zero pair, so they are now gone on the right side of the equation. You might be able to do this multiplication in your head. 32 equals 32 times what? 1 times 32. So you could do that, or if you weren't sure, go ahead and undo the multiplication by dividing. So to undo 32, I need to divide by a positive 32, because a positive divided by a positive is a positive 1x, a positive x. And 32 divided by 32 is 1, so our final answer is 1. Please rewind the video if you need to get the notes done or if you want to re-watch a step. Now remember, after you finish your notes, make a line, and we're going to be working on Delta Math Learning Target B, Day 2. So at the end of your notes, you'll make a line, and you'll put your Delta Math Learning Target B, Day number 2. Now this is where all of your work should go. And it is important to do this, it is important to do this so that you can study your mistakes and also review what you get right to prepare for the test in a few weeks. See you soon, Mustangs.